Hello, welcome to Chapter 11, Policy as Code. We are actually going to be looking at the code execution of this chapter. So, first thing to do is to do a bunch of installation as always. We'll start with installing conftest. This is something that we'd be using in this chapter. So we are installing that. Followed that by installing OPA if you don't have OPA in place already. Okay, it's installed. We will now install pre-commit. This is one of the tests that we'll be doing. So we go ahead and do that. And we should always do the set of Python packages that we need to do. So we can see we have done the Prometheus client and Kubernetes there. Now the step one in the process is to go ahead and install the gatekeeper via Helm. So it runs as an admission webhook intercepting every kubectl, apply and validate against your policies. So if you completed chapter 2 and 3, gatekeeper may already be running in your Flux system. So you should check that by running a kubectl command. So you can actually go out and check it using maybe a command like this. Okay, you see that it is running. So we don't need to probably install this again. Know that it is running there. We can move on to the next step. If not, what you would be doing is that you'll be running something like this, to ensure that you can actually get this gatekeeper running. All right, next step after that is to apply the constraint templates and policies. So templates define the Rego rules, so constraints instantiates them and the parameters and also comes along with it. So together, these two sort of form a complete policy framework. So we'll start by applying constraint templates and then wait for the CRDs to register and then apply the constraints. So let's start with applying the constraint template. Okay, so that's been applied. Now we'll do the constraint template security baselines. And these are all available here in the code base of chapter 11. Now we can apply the policies. Okay. At that point, Gatekeeper generates a CRD for each constraint template, mostly asynchronously, and we'll poll until all the 6 CRDs are registered. What I found is that this sometimes take a bit of time, so I'm going to run this in a loop. Let's see if this is actually going to complete. We'll wait until it's all done. So you can say it is being run. Where does it say all CRDs are registered? So this is good. So this is all good to go. So sometimes it can take some time. In this case, it was pretty quick. Probably because I've been doing some testing prior to this. Now it's time for us to do a shift left testing. So in the book, we're discussing this aspect of conf test that runs the same Rego policies against YAML that runs locally before reaching the cluster. So this catches any violations in CI or perhaps on your desktop or your laptop. So let's try and run the conf test. So conf test provided you 56 tests in which 36 passed and 3 warnings and 17 failures. So this is expected, right? So if you go look through each of these manifests, you would find that this is all good. This is how it's supposed to work. So it should show you both pass and fail and warnings. And that is the whole purpose of running the conf test. So next, we will actually run a wrapper that provide more of that color-coded output and summary statistics on top of the conf test. This is mostly for better readability. So we actually go ahead and run that. So you can say this way you're seeing a little bit more of that summary and color-coded and things like that. So this is just as a convenience more than anything else. Now that that's in place, next thing to do would be to demonstrate a live enforcement of how this works. So essentially, think of this like a before and after demo. where a non-compliant pod gets denied and then we fix it and it goes through. And that's the payoff of policy as code. So let's start with deploying a non-compliant pod and see how this actually fails or gets denied. So you can see that this essentially failed because of it's sort of missing the appropriate resource request. So now that we can actually go ahead and run the actual command, see how this works. Hopefully I get the syntax right on this one. Excellent. So you can see that this one, the test compliant was created there. So that's basically this supposed to work, right? So now we'll go into setting up a pre-commit hook. So we remember we installed pre-commit. So let's go ahead and integrate pre-commit with Git so that developers can get that instant feedback on policy violations before the code leaves the machine. So pre-commit means before you commit that. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can say that the same thing happened here. So we basically pre-commit all files. You saw those failures and the ones passing. So you can see 42 tests and 30 passed with 3 warnings and 9 failures. So excellent. So this essentially shows you that this sort of works. Now that we have done that, next thing to do would be for us to generate a compliance dashboard. So this is a way in which we can really look at some of these things. So idea is to generate a markdown file, which we can actually look at later. So let's actually run this compliance dashboard.py. Should be here. The script should be here. You can take a look at it and make any formatting changes and other changes that you would like. Let's go ahead and run that. So it generated a compliance report.md. I'm going to use script to look at the compliance report. So grep is opening this on localhost. So let's actually look at the browser to read through this. Okay, so you can see I've actually opened the markdown file, which is the platform compliance report that we generated using that script that you showed. So it shows you the total violations, various counts, high, medium, and the specific policy violations there, and violations by namespace, and all the details. So this is excellent, right? This is exactly what you really want from running the policy as code. So this sort of demonstrates how you can actually not only understand some of the policy violations, but how to report it and how to sort of act on that kind of thing. Now let's switch back to our Visual Studio and look at the next step. So the next step would be to run your gatekeeper exporter. So what this does is that it sort of scrapes, let's see, where would that be? It'll be under scripts, gatekeeper exporter. So what this does is that it queries the OPA gatekeeper audit results and exposes them as Prometheus metrics. And once you have it as Prometheus metrics, you can watch that in Grafana. Now the next step is for us to look at the gatekeeper exporter. So this gatekeeper exporter, what it does is that it queries the OPA gatekeeper and audit the results and exposes them as Prometheus metrics. Once it's there, we can actually go back to the browser and take a look at this. So let's try and see if we can run this. So the gatekeeper Prometheus exporter is running and it's collecting the metrics. So let's leave that there and then I'll go back to a browser and take a look at how this looks. Okay, so now we will come to the port 9090, I believe that's where we were at the Prometheus, and then we can just come and look at this one. If you look at port 9090, it should tell you all the metrics that is being generated. So you can also look at the metrics endpoint to find all the additional information. So now the good thing is that everything is working as expected. You are able to audit the results and expose them on the Prometheus side of things. Now the last step is to, as always, test our policies. So we will quit out of this and look at our test script. So our test script, test policies.py is here. So this is our policy validation test that we'd be doing. So let's actually run this. In order to run this, we will go ahead and run test policies.py directly. It'll say that it's running through all these tests and telling you what has passed and what has failed. Okay, thank you.